right. Was that an intuitive hit or not that I should not have started that dryer? So we are back for part two of working with our creativity muse today. So my internet crashed when I turned on the heater. All my power went out. I apologize. So hopefully you will find your way back. And I should have trusted and listened to the Inner Muse when she said this was going to happen. So apologies for that interruption in the video. I am back. So totally my own fault. And for that happening, and thankful for Brad, who was upstairs and was able to go put the power back on really quickly. So my apologies. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Sorry about that. And both of the parts will be up on the replay, but it's a good chance to take a break, catch my breath. I did, while the power was coming back on, get this mostly dry. So the next step is that I'm going to cut her out. And I have been using the dryer daily recording classes, but there's something about being perhaps live on the internet, or it drew a little bit of extra energy this morning. Okay, so I'm going to get her all cut out and put together and then decide where we need to go next. Go away buttons. Everything's popping up now that I restarted the computer. So this is the same basic articulated doll template that we used at the beginning of January. And I will probably return and use this one frequently throughout the year. It's a really simple template, and I did found, thanks back, glad you're back everybody, thank you, sorry about that. Sometimes it happens, and you know, it's the beauty of having a live show. We just roll with the punches. And what I have noticed in creating these articulated paper dolls is stiffer paper is definitely better. And not even going to be too much of a perfectionist about cutting them out, but even as I'm cutting them out, I'm reading what's on here. Definitely need some movement today. We have been really lucky this week with a unusually warm week and temperatures in the 50s and 60s, and it's been lovely to get outside for some fresh air. All right. Making sure, I kind of like to have some of those parts put together so I remember what goes where as well. So that's a leg. Stillness and quiet. Definitely one of the things I love about winter is I turn into definitely a bit of a hermit and really love being home in my studio. I tend to be productive and paint more and get a lot done. And I have so many fun projects on the go. I did a brave thing that was on my goal list, which was to submit one of my paintings to a local art gallery. I belong to a wonderful local art guild, and I belonged for a year. And they have different levels of membership. They have exhibiting members and they have just basic members. And I joined primarily just to get inspiration, but also to have creative community. And one of my goals this year was to become an exhibiting member and have my art showing. We have a beautiful little gallery in downtown Loveland, and you have to apply to be accepted. And I had doubts about it for a few reasons. Of course, that inner critic, asking, is my art good enough to go in an art gallery? And I already learned just from taking and sharing my art with the director some up leveling in finishing things that I need to do. Like, it was a really fascinating conversation and look at things. It was so incredibly helpful. But in the month of February, they are having a member show and any member could submit a piece. So I submitted a piece. So as of today, my art, one of my favorite large elephant painting, is hanging in a gallery in downtown Loveland, Colorado, which was pretty like a big step for me. Because I don't, I love my painting. It's not, super important to me that other people love my art. Selling my art is not a proactive part of my business, but it felt like I want to be courageous and really step outside of my comfort zone with my own art. And it's hard to inspire others or ask others to do things that I'm not willing to do myself. So it felt like an important move for me to make. I did not expect it to happen quite so fast. I went and to meet with the executive director of the organization to talk about volunteering. And she said, "Oh, I saw on your membership information that you were interested." And I was thinking, oh, maybe March, maybe April, but nope. And so now I have to have new pieces painted by the end of the month. I have a couple that are ready to go. And but I also have a couple that new ones that I'd like to create to start showing my work in the gallery. And my perspective on this is like I'm not in this to see if people buy my art. Of course, that would be absolutely lovely. More money for art supplies, but mostly it's feedback, right? So, it's like listening to what other people have to say, seeing what other artists have to say. There's nobody that whose art is anything like mine in the gallery. There's a lot of beautiful, beautiful art. There's one other artist who does similar work, and I'm just a huge fan of her art. But it was that discernment piece of knowing when I was almost ready, and then, well, I'm not quite ready, but the invitation is there. Okay, it's time to move. So our inner muse can help and support us in making these decisions as well. And because I'm traveling this weekend, I won't be there for the opening night of the show, but I want to get over there and definitely get a picture of it hanging in the gallery. That is the right hand. There's even something wonderful about putting all the parts together that feels like bringing her to life. Piece by piece, bringing that vision of my own imagination out from within and onto the page. So important to acknowledge our muse. And she might get a couple of more brads in there to hold her in there a little more tightly. If you don't have an awl, hi Carolyn. If you don't have an awl for doing this, then like a needlepoint needle or a thicker needle can work really nicely as well, because these tiny little brads are not very sharp on the back sides, and I found they just ended up sort of bending the paper, which ended up just being frustrating. And you can find brads anywhere. I have bought them online on Amazon, Michaels. These I think were from Michaels, and they're little tiny buttons, which I love. And they are inexpensive to get, and they seem to come in very large quantities. So one box will certainly last you for a lifetime of doll making. And when I think about the muse, we want to also think about that idea of energy and movement. How does she like to move? How does she stand? Which is the beauty of working with the articulated paper dolls. And look, she's coming together really nicely with her funky faceless self. And I have some fun ideas for faces, which is where we will go next. We will look at some different ways to get some faces on our dolls. I think I already know which one I'm going to use. She's looking at me over here, but I'm not sure. So my inner child feels like she's very present right now and really wanting to have a voice in what is going on. So notice how the different parts of you show up at different times and in different conversations. She definitely loves to dance. I should have put dance on there. All right, a few more brads here. She's definitely colorful. Definitely colorful. Anybody else think about their muse or thinking about it today? When you think about your muse, how would you describe her in a couple of words? Like, what would be language that you would use to describe your muse and how she loves to connect with you, or how does she show up for you? Thank you, Karen. Almost got her together. And I love working with these larger dolls. Definitely the format allows for more opportunity for growth, bright and colorful and peaceful. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Throwing out rainbows. Like I can see yours having a unicorn companion, or I don't know if your girls, Tori, were young enough for My Little Pony, right? But I can see your inner muse having a My Little Pony to play with and shooting rainbows. Even your art mirrors that with your love of bright colors. So many ponies. I love horses too. It's so funny that came up because horse energy and horse magic has been showing up a lot around me lately, and I always pay attention. And so there will be a horse painting coming some point in the near future. So here is the base of this doll, right? She's just the beginning of the journey. And like I said, next week I want to come back and add some clothes and some different accessories to my muse. And today I want to think about her face and oh, and also her wings. She's telling me, she's like, don't forget the wings. So she definitely wants some wings. And I am so grateful to Marion Weissel, who sent me one of those electric teacup warmers because I tend to make my tea or coffee and then let it go cold. And so now I have this lovely cup of tea staying hot. So a few different things came to mind when I thought about faces. So as I was just going through collage materials, speaking of horses, I had a horse growing up. There was a part of me, I think, as a child that wanted to be a cowgirl or ride horses more. But she's a little too serious. So I love the hat. So I might even just cut that hat off or use it as a template. This is definitely going to become part of a doll or some other collage because I really love her. I love the look on her face. I could paint her as well and use her as inspiration. I grabbed some of my hand-painted faces. So these are the faces that if you signed up for our email list, I gave you a whole set of these that we created in using artificial intelligence. I printed them out in black and white and have colored them. So something about the flower on her head and the look on her face felt good. And then I'm also playing with these different animals for some other projects. I'm not sure where I'm going with them yet. And I had gotten some new watercolors and I'm playing with the watercolors and this one feels very fun. So I think maybe at least one side of her face might be, maybe she's going to need some big ears, but I love that cute little face that looks like, I don't know if this is supposed to be a llama, but I was just drawing imaginary, quirky animals for some playful ideas. At some point, we're going to do a month of animal paper dolls, which I'm very excited about. This one just feels too restful. This one feels maybe a little too small, so I might have to get it up on the computer. Oh, maybe it's going to go on top of her head like a fun little part of her. Like she's feeling like she needs some silliness, like she's just a little bit too serious at the moment. So maybe this is her hat. I even had, I don't know that it lasted, but Maggie and I both had really fun animal, like winter hats with the long tails and the funny ears. And that's how it kind of feels like this really fun, playful hat that she's wearing that somehow is a part of her. Okay, she's going to be quirky, and I'm just going to have to go with it because that's what she's telling. I'm going to see if I have another version of that one. You guys should see the horrific pile of papers on my floor. So I don't have another one. Stepping on my microphone here, some that I started adding fun patterns to, so all kinds of ideas. So maybe what she's wanting is just, I love this little kitty cat face too. She's wanting some quirky animal companions to play with her. So maybe these are going to come into play next week. And I can always take this off of here for a second. So this is what's happening inside of her head. So I can always come in here and create my own face. Zoom in just a little bit. Bear with me. I'm going to focus this up for a second. Let's see, get something with better lines. And I was poking around in my stencils and I found this fabulous stencil. This is from Megan Quinlan's studio. Megan is one of my favorite artists. I love her work. She also has a passion for paper dolls as well. And these are face drawing templates that are super simple to use. So if getting better at drawing faces is something that is on your to learn list this year, she sells these in her Etsy studio. And you can also find her, excuse me, you can also find her on Instagram, and I will type her name into the chat. It's Megan, Megan Quinlan Studios, and she has some amazing paper doll stencils, including some animal ones that I absolutely love and are so much fun to play with. But I can simply line this up. It turns out that my doll head just about fits that perfectly. It's a little small, so let me see. I'm looking for a scrap of watercolor paper, so this one looks good. And I am going to use this to draw a face, but even once you see the proportions and the way it's drawn, this is such a great way to draw faces. I love using magazine images as inspiration for faces as well. What's missing on here is some ears, but I'll show where the ears go. So when we think about drawing a face, our tendency is to want to put the eyes up higher on the head. And we have to remember that, this is like our hairline and the top of our head. So if I want to come in and maybe add some hair in here, and that hair even goes up, over the top of the head. So I can draw some. My muse is definitely going to have some long hair. I think I always wanted long hair, but when I've had it, I didn't like it. It really bugs me. So I have an interesting relationship with hair. So the first line is the eyes, this line is the nose, and this line way down here is the mouth. Our ears tend to go, and you can actually like put a pencil if you've never done this before. So you can put a pencil right here go from the corner of your eye to the top of your ear. You can't see my ears right now, but from the corner of my eye right here to the top of my ear, and then from the bottom of my nose to the bottom of my ear holds that space. And it's a good reminder to look at our own faces when we're drawing, to notice the layout and placements of things, right? Like you can notice where my eyes are. They are not in the smack center of my head. So some great just reminders and tips on drawing faces. So I can come in and give her just a really simple nose. I'm not going for a fancy face. And I want to make sure that my eyes are even, and this space between the eyes is the same width right here. This space is the same. These should all be the same right here, approximately the same. And the way you learn to draw faces is with lots of practice. And then the more that you draw them and really understand the shapes, then the more you can have fun with changing those shapes up, right? With the size of the mouth. Our mouth, I'm going to come back over here for just a second. Look at where the corner of my mouth is, about the center of my eye, right? The corner of my mouth is at the center of my eye. So have some fun looking at yourself in the mirror, something that can be tricky for those of us to do, which is very healing to learn to love looking at yourself in the mirror. So I'm going to give her some ears here. I think it's because of that deep listening and that practicing stillness and quiet. Oh, yeah, and she definitely wants some earrings. She is a girly girl, which I do not tend to be a very girly girl, but she is definitely having that energy of a girly girl. And then just some almond-shaped eyes. And a big part of that eye is actually the eyelid and that white of the eye. And once you get that basic shape down, then you can kind of play with that shape. This paper is not lovely to draw on. And we'll give her some eyelashes in there as well. And it feels like she wants to be blonde, which usually I am not drawn to. Like a lot of my artwork, my dolls tend to have red hair. There was some part of me that always wanted to be a redhead. And then when you draw the eyeball, what makes the face look more realistic is not drawing that whole eye, because that lid comes down over the eye. We're going to add in that iris of that eye. And maybe just a little line work and shading. And she's going to need to get colored as well. So again, the edge of my lips from the center of my eye. And in my mind, it makes the lips too wide. But then when you draw them out, it always seems to somehow work out magically. And you see lots of fun drawings of girls with really tiny mouths in mixed media art, but you find your way. So my muse has a big mouth. She's really loud, right? She definitely has a lot to say. All right. So I'm going to erase some of these lines. Hopefully that is a little helpful for some of you on face drawing tutorials. And without the stencil, you can still use those same principles and guidelines. It's funny, she's got a round nose. Get that piece underneath the nose. She feels like she needs just a little more of a smile there. She's my muse. My muse is not serious. So just noticing a little shading under the chin. All right, I'm going to use those watercolor pencils to add some color to her, and then I will attach her to the rest of her body, and we will be complete for today. And look forward to having a ton of fun creating clothes and accessories for her next week. She's very excited for that. And oh, and I still need to create her butterfly wings. So somehow this little dude wants to be part, but I'm not sure how. It's going to go somewhere. And she was very clear it was butterfly wings, not bird wings or angel wings. It's funny because I pulled out this feather stencil initially thinking there needed to be some feathers somewhere, so there may still be some feathers that pop up somewhere. And let's see what we got here. Some not a lot of fleshy tones in my watercolor pencils, but I am just going to go with what I have. And she's going to have, it's going to be that same yellow, some crazy yellow hair. I'm going to keep this pretty light because I really like the pencil lines under there, so we're going to use those. pencil lines, and I'm just going to use water on her for now so that I have a little more ability to kind of move the color around, not have it sit still. Well, that color worked pretty well. Noticing the ink or the lead of the pencil is spreading a little bit as well. Totally fine. This is a very inexpensive watercolor paper I bought when I was doing a project at a rec center that had a really low budget, and it does not actually hold water very well. It is not my favorite paper. I had not thought about laminating her, Karen, but I have a laminator, and that would actually be a great idea. The fun thing about laminating her is that it means that I could stick things to her and take them off. Be a fun way to work with her. Also just preserve so she lasts longer. But I always feel like with characters like this, when I'm working with parts of self, that they show up for a while and then they move on. So I don't have any need for her to last forever either. But now I'm curious about what kind of possibility is there if I laminate her. So thank you for that idea. I might come in with some acrylic paint over the top to just change her up a little bit. And she's going to, oh, okay, she's going to have a green eye and a blue eye. A little darker green. I'm working quickly and lightly and not letting myself get frustrated with the paper, which is fraying and tearing. So my inner muse is like, "Rah!" It's all good. I'll give her a little extra color here. And this might be her face for now, not her face forever, which is also always an option. All right. And notice that I created her separate from her body, and so we're going to see what she looks like when we put her on, and it might not be exactly what I want, and she might be perfect. We'll see. Somehow the bright yellow feels really juicy. Oh, she's a little, no, she's not too big. She might be a little big for the body, but it gives me the idea of where I'm going. I'm going to cut her hair here. Oh, the paper's super wet. Okay, so the paper is not making me happy, so I'm probably going to redo that same face. Let me zoom way out. There she is. Oh, she's very fun. I love it. She's pretty cocky, right? Very, very sure of herself. She's got her little power pose, and sometimes maybe what she needs most is to remember to remind me to dance and play, so that articulated part. She is very fun. So I'm going to let that face get nice and dry, and then see if I can touch it up a little bit with some paint, because I actually do love that face on her. She is very fun, very happy. She's telling me she wants a tulle skirt, like a ballerina skirt. And so definitely some texture for next week, going to come in for some playtime. And somehow this little dude is going to be a part of her. And then the blue face that I drew on and took off and went where needs to go onto, there it is, needs to go onto the back of her. So because this was an important part of the journey and the story here, so this piece of what's happening inside of her will just get glued onto the back, and then the whole thing will get attached to our doll because it's important to have all of those parts. And saying that, notice that there are two sides here to this doll, and that you can easily, if you have a lot to say or your muse has a lot to say, or if there's a shadowy side of your muse. What's going on here? There we go. Trying to get that head back on. Then you can also create on the other side, right? Like I could also paint up or maybe add collage elements and create a different version of her on the back side. She's like, I'm ready to move. Let's go. Time for some fun. So a whole different perspective on both sides is possible. So the main thing is like have fun and really celebrate your inner muse. It's so important to honor her on your journey and make sure that you're present to her, that you're connecting with her. I don't know why she feels like she wants to click her heels. So this is that childlike play of coming in and moving her around. She's like, I really need my head attached, Minette. So let's go ahead and get her attached. And then we can figure out the rest later. I have lots of other things that are on my to-do list today, and I could just sit here all day and play with my muse. And wouldn't that be a magical day? Okay, there she is, completely put together, happy and joyful and ready to travel into the next creative adventure, perhaps with some silly animal companions along the way. That'll be part of what we look at next week. But I love her and can't wait to finish her over the next couple of weeks and get her, find a spot for her in my studio. Would love to see yours as well. Remember, if you're on our email list, we do have a private forum just for this community. And if you're making dolls along with me, I'd love for you to pop in there and share your versions of the dolls. And I want to thank you, Tori, for sharing your dolls from last week. So much fun to see. Thanks, everybody. Awesome spending time with you live today. Again, apologies for that technical interrupt, and I will see you guys all next week. Have a beautiful creative rest of your week. Bye, everybody.